Hey, what's up? It's Skippy. I'm bored, so I figure I may as well give away a extraction technique, secret, whatever. I'm gonna teach everybody listening how to do closed loop extraction for marijuana. It's a hydrocarbon extraction using butane, using propane, or using a combination of the both. All right. The reason it's called a closed loop a closed loop system. All right, because the system is, I know this is going to sound crazy, it's a closed loop. Okay, where that means the butane that I start with will be the butane coming back to me at the end because it's an entire loop. Okay? Now, butane, you're thinking, okay, what do I need? Just like a lighter or something from 7-Eleven? No. You're going to need an industrial sized tank of butane. In this case, we're going to go with 100 pounds of butane because liquids like this are measured in pounds so that you can have an accurate measurement. Now, typically you would have your butane tank on a scale so that you could measure the amount of butane poundage that was going into the product. So let me explain the closed loop system before we go into the extraction real quick. So what you have is, at first you have your butane tank, okay, like I said, 100-pound tank. Then you have lines that go down into a little spiral springy looking thing. It's a condenser. All right. And then that goes from there into a valve situation with a pressure gauge that runs into a tube with filters on it. The tube goes down to the bottom. And then from the bottom, there's another line that goes up into a receiving receptacle. The receiving receptacle has a sleeve around it that has a hot water loop going through it as well, so that you can evaporate the butane off and use it again. So you have the receiving chamber. They have what's called sight glasses. You use a flashlight, you can illuminate the inside, look through it, and see the process as it's going on. From there, when you have it going, the butane and everything, because you're going to be making a crude oil out of the marijuana, that will come into the receiving chamber. And the receiving chamber has a pressure gauge on it. It's got a bunch of different valves on it so that things can come in, things can go out. Big chamber, okay? Has to hold anywhere between, 25 to 50 pounds of butane at a time. Once the butane escapes there, it's going to go from that. There's a line from the chamber into a particle filter. The particle filter will take out any moisture or any any particles, any remnants that may be escaped from the butane evaporation process. Then what happens is, from that, it goes into a solvent recovery pump. Some of the places I worked at had these solvent recovery pumps that were unreal. They were gigantic. But from the solvent recovery pump, it goes back into your original 100-pound butane container. Okay? So this is the process for creating marijuana crude using a closed loop extraction system. So what you would do is you would have to load a column, a big metal column, filled with marijuana. It could be shake, it could be trim, it could be flash frozen material. But you would stuff that into your blasting tube, as we call it. Okay? And for every 1 pound of marijuana product you put in there, you would have to run 5 pounds of butane through the column. So that's what you'd have to do. Now we put the 5 pound marijuana column onto the system. We lock down the system using clamps and filters. Make sure that everything is on tight. You don't want leaks. And you don't want this girl named Emily working with you. She will blow up your laboratory. She's a fucking idiot. Just a little personal note. If Emily comes knocking at your door, do not let Emily work for you. She is a liability. She's a piece of shit. Okay? Don't let Emily work for you. I have pictures of the lab that she blew up. Don't let Emily work for you. And that was a mistake. Because, here's the problem. I had a friend who had a wife who needed a job, and then this bitch ended up getting me fired. Fuck you, Emily. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Okay, so, enough about that. Anyway, I put the 5 pound column onto the system, have it all, locked down. Once everything is in place, you use a vacuum pump, and you vacuum the entire system. You get a vacuum pump, just have everything get sucked out, okay? You want everything to be under vacuum. All right? Then what you do is the valves that go towards the solvent recovery column, you want to close those off. And then what you want to do is you have to prepare a bucket, 2 buckets, okay, for the condenser. One is going to be a bucket filled with denatured alcohol and dry ice. That is going to be the way that you freeze your solvent. Okay, it's a flash freezing process. What happens is the dry ice makes the denatured alcohol 110 degrees below zero. I take it back. I'm sorry, 109.7 degrees below zero. My bad. Didn't mean to round it up. My bad. But anyway, it takes it down to 110 degrees below zero. And then you also have to have another bucket with some sort of heating element in it. We normally used sous vide heating elements to have a hot water bucket so that you can purge the system of butane. So here we go. So here's what we're going to do. We have the system vac down. We have everything locked up. Now what we're going to do is we are going to submerge the coils from the ones that are close to the solvent container. We're going to submerge those coils into the freezing cold of the dry ice and denatured alcohol. Then you're going to pressurize using nitrogen. You're going to up the pressure of the system. Okay, the nitrogen tank is going to force the butane into the system as well as the vacuum. So you have the nitrogen forcing the butane out while the vacuum is sucking it in. So it works in combination with one another. So what you do is you run 25 pounds from the solvent tank into the blasting tube, the column filled with 5 pounds of marijuana. You put 25 pounds of solvent in there. You watch it click down on the scale, Or you could always do an eyeballing like I used to do. It's not that difficult. And then what you do is, once you have 25 pounds in there, you let it soak. Okay, what you do is you close off the top valve on top of the blasting tube. You let that column soak for about 5 minutes so that it can do a proper hydrocarbon extraction. After 5 minutes, you need to purge your system. That means you open up the bottom valve so that it starts going into the crude recovery system. And then what you do is you take the what's it called? You take the coil that was once in the bucket that had the dry ice and the natrium alcohol, and you put it into the hot water bucket. What that does is it purges the butane out of the line that was going from the solvent tank. So you let that purge and everything. At that time, you're also turning on your hot water for the solvent recovery, because what the hot water is going to do is it's going to evaporate the butane. Okay, the hot water is not touching anything inside of the solvent recovery unit. It's like I said, it's got a heated sleeve. It's heated all the way around it. You don't want that to freeze up, otherwise you are screwed, because the water inside, since it's water and the butane is 100 degrees below zero, the water, if it's not properly heated, will freeze and completely clog up your system. So ask me how I know. Anyway, once you purge all the butane out of there, and mind you, it's a long process. Mind you, okay, I forgot to mention, you have to open up your valves for everything that going back into the solvent container, the starting solvent container. Open up all your valves, have the butane evaporate, go through the system, go through the particle filter, go through the solvent recovery pump back into the solvent tank. What's nice is once it's gone all the way through the system once, it's already kind of frozen, so the dry ice doesn't have to do as much work the next time, and you can get a better hydrocarbon extraction, because the colder it is, the better extraction that it does. Also, the colder it is, it will hang on to moisture better through the filtration process, because it will freeze and turn that stuff into ice, and it's going nowhere. Yeah, and then once you have in your solvent recovery tank, your crude oil tank, whatever you want to call it, the thing, you know, after it leaves the what's it called, the blasting tube, and goes in there, and then it evaporates all the butane out, you're left with a crude oil at the bottom. Okay, now you can take this crude oil, because it's just a concentrate of all the essential oils, cannabinoids, everything, the THC, everything that's inside the plant that, you know, was looked over. You take that, and what I would normally do, if you can either use nitrogen to pressurize it to get it out, or what I would normally do, I would use the butane to evaporate it off, create pressure inside, and that way it would be able, there's a spout at the bottom of this recovery system. That's where you unload your crude oil, and when it comes out, it just shoots everywhere, so you have to be very, very careful. And what you normally do is you take a tray from your vacuum oven. We use vacuum ovens, I'll tell you why in a minute. What you do is you would weigh the paper that you would put onto the tray on the vac oven. That way, like let's say the paper was 5 grams, okay? So when you finally get your weight from that slab of concentrate, let's say it's 55 grams, okay? That's what I poured. I got a 55-gram slab of shatter. That would actually be 50 grams because I subtracted the paper weight. See how that works? Okay. So what you would do is you would measure out and get your paper for your tray to put in your vacuum oven, and you would shoot out a big glob of crude oil. At this point, it'll be bubbling, okay, because it's purging butane. The butane is just trying to escape. So you get these big bubbles, and if it's really good oil, you'll see like the bubbles like have a lot of viscosity, like really thick, and it's really like sticky. Yeah, real sticky. But then what you do is you put that slab into a vacuum oven at 90 degrees. You vacuum the air out. As you do this, that little puddle of crude oil will expand to this gigantic mushroom looking, it's like a big cloud looking thing. You want to try to keep it from sticking to the sides or the top of the oven, because if it gets too big too quick, you got a mess on your hands. That's no fun. But you leave that in the vacuum oven overnight for about 24 hours. You let that do what's called purging, okay? And what the vacuum oven is doing is it's stretching the oil out and helping to purge the butane that is trapped inside the oil out of the oil, okay? So you let that do the purge for 24 hours. Then the next day after 24 hours, what you do is you take your slab and you flip it. You take it, you pull it off the sheet, you flip it upside down, and you purge it again for 24 hours, because the bottom side of the shatter still has trapped butane in it. So you have to flip it upside down in order to purge the rest of the butane out of it. Once it is properly purged, you take it out of the oven and you dab it, and it's good stuff. But also, I mean, that crude oil, you can take that and turn it into diamonds. You can take that, turn it into butter, batter, shatter, wax. That's, you know, the starting point for a good majority of the concentrates that you're using. And also the starting point for your vapor pens. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Alright. All the stuff that wasn't good enough to get packaged and put on the shelf, all the stuff that wasn't good enough, wasn't the right color, it didn't, you know, have the right terpene profile, it didn't, you know, live up to the industry standard. Anything that is below average becomes vapor pens. You end up dissolving your crude, your shatter, or whatever, in ethanol, and then from that point you do different processes and use different equipment and turn it into vapor pens. Maybe I'll do a video exposing how to use some of the stuff in the marijuana industry. I give away the secrets, even though they're not secrets. This is shit I learned. My old boss paid like tens of thousands of dollars for me to learn how to do this shit, and thank you, even though I don't like you. You know, it was funny because like my boss was too stupid to learn how to use his own equipment, so he paid people like me to do it. Like, thank you. I love education. I'm my own best teacher, but sometimes I can learn, and I can learn real good. I love learning new skills, and I know how to do a lot of crazy shit in the marijuana industry. It's pretty rad, but yeah. But yeah, so now you just learned how to make concentrates using a closed loop extraction system. Now get out there and make $1 billion. You can do it. You can do it. I have faith in you. Get out there and do it. Don't forget to follow me on my Instagram. Yeah, see how I did that? One man sausage party. Check me out. But anyhow, I'm gonna take off. Whatever. Whatever. Okay. Well, I'm glad. Hey, if you got this far, you're cool. Thank you. And you just learned how to make concentrates. So good for you. You learned something today. Right on. Yeah, that was the one thing I learned in the military. Always be smarter than the equipment you're working with. And that was one thing my boss could never be, because he used to just mess up his own equipment anytime he used it. He's dumb. Whatever. As long as he put up the money and gave me, paid me, that's all that matters. But whatever. That guy sucks, and fuck you, Emily. So I'm out of here. Take care. Bye.